You see, in my years of observing people, their actions and the choices they make, I've come to understand something deeper. Wisdom isn't about how much you know, it's about how you live, how you treat those around you, and how willing you are to grow from your mistakes. But here's the thing, there are certain undeniable traits, 6 to be exact, that reveal when someone isn't just lacking intelligence, but missing the very essence of wisdom. Now, before you dismiss this as just another list or laugh at the thought of pointing out foolishness, let me tell you why this matters. Recognizing these signs isn't about judging others. It's about self-awareness, personal growth, and avoiding these very traps in our own lives. It's also about guiding those who may not even realize they're stuck in cycles of their own making. So join me as we uncover the 6 unmistakable signs of a foolish person, each offering a lesson, a warning, and a chance for self-reflection. After all, the path to wisdom starts with awareness. Ready to take the first step? Let's begin. Number 1, overconfidence without reason. Have you ever seen a balloon filled with too much air? At first it looks impressive, larger, shinier, and seemingly full of potential, but with one wrong move, it bursts, leaving nothing but scraps behind. Overconfidence works the same way. When someone overestimates their abilities or knowledge, they inflate their sense of self to the point of recklessness, often leading to disastrous outcomes. Here's the truth. Confidence is essential, but without reason or substance, it becomes a trap. Overconfidence blinds people to their limitations, making them dismiss preparation, ignore advice, and take risks they're not equipped to handle. Stoicism teaches us to temper confidence with self-awareness. It's not about thinking less of yourself, but about knowing your true limits and building your abilities from there. I once knew someone, let's call him Alex, who embodied this trait. Alex was brilliant, but had a habit of overestimating his knowledge. During a major presentation, he decided to wing it instead of preparing, convinced that his natural charm and intelligence would carry him through. The result? A string of incoherent points, missed questions, and a visibly frustrated audience. Alex's overconfidence had not only embarrassed him, but also cost him the respect of his peers. It wasn't his lack of intelligence that caused the failure. It was his refusal to acknowledge the gap between his confidence and his preparation. Why does overconfidence lead to reckless decisions? Because it creates a false sense of security. When you believe you're invincible or all-knowing, you ignore the very steps that lead to success, learning, planning, and listening to others. Instead of strengthening your foundation, you build on air, leaving yourself vulnerable to failure. Here's how to temper confidence with reason and avoid the pitfalls of overconfidence. Recognize your limits. Confidence grows when you know where you excel and where you need improvement. Self-awareness is the key. Prepare thoroughly. No matter how skilled you are, preparation reinforces your strengths and reduces the risk of missteps. Seek feedback. Surround yourself with people who challenge your ideas and help you see blind spots. Balance confidence with humility. Believe in yourself, but stay open to learning and growth. Humility keeps confidence grounded. Overconfidence without reason is like trying to cross a rickety bridge, convinced it's solid just because you believe it is. The Stoics remind us that true strength comes not from ignoring our limits, but from understanding and working within them. So, the next time you find yourself inflating your abilities, ask, am I building on a strong foundation, or am I setting myself up to burst? Choose to balance confidence with preparation, and watch as your decisions become smarter, your risks more calculated, and your successes truly earned. Number 2, they speak without thinking. Have you ever seen a chef spill salt into a dish without measuring? At first, it seems harmless, just a pinch too much. But once the damage is done, the flavor is ruined, and there's no way to undo it. Impulsive words work the same way. Once they're spoken, they can't be taken back, often leaving a bitter taste in the air. Here's the truth. Careless words might feel quick and easy, but their effects linger far longer than we realize. Stoicism teaches us that thoughtful speech is a sign of wisdom and self-control. As Zeno wisely said, "Better to trip with the feet than with the tongue." I remember working with a teammate named Emily who had a habit of speaking without thinking. During a team presentation, she interrupted someone mid-sentence to correct a minor mistake. While she was technically right, her tone was abrupt and dismissive. The colleague fumbled, lost their train of thought, and the room became tense. Emily didn't intend to embarrass anyone, but her impulsive words had disrupted the flow and undermined her teammates' confidence. Why do impulsive words create harm? Because words, once spoken, have weight. They can either build trust and clarity or tear down and confuse. When we speak without thinking, we often act from a place of ego or emotion, forgetting the lasting impact of what we say. Zeno's wisdom, "Better to trip with the feet than with the tongue," reminds us that while physical stumbles may hurt momentarily, careless words can leave scars that last far longer. Here's how to avoid impulsive speech and choose your words wisely. Think before you speak. Pause for a moment and ask yourself, will this add value or cause harm? Consider timing. Sometimes it's not just what you say, but when you say it. Choose moments that encourage understanding, not conflict. Lead with empathy. Put yourself in the listener's shoes. How would you feel if someone said this to you? Embrace the power of silence. Silence isn't weakness, it's wisdom. Sometimes the best response is no response at all. Speaking without thinking is like adding too much salt to a dish. It overwhelms the flavor, ruins the experience, and leaves regret in its wake. The Stoics remind us that wisdom is found in restraint, in speaking with intention and purpose. So the next time you feel the urge to speak impulsively, ask yourself, am I seasoning this moment with care, or am I ruining it with haste? Choose to measure your words, to pause, and to speak with purpose. You'll find that mindful speech builds trust, fosters understanding, and strengthens relationships. Number 3, judging others harshly. Have you ever watched someone look at a tree in winter and call it lifeless, not realizing the roots are working quietly beneath the surface? Judging others harshly works the same way. It's based on what's visible at the moment, ignoring the unseen struggles, growth, and context that make up the whole story. Here's the truth. Harsh judgment often says more about the person judging than the one being judged. It comes from impatience, assumptions, or a refusal to understand deeper truths. Stoicism teaches us that wisdom is found in observation, patience, and restraint. As Marcus Aurelius said, "You always own the option of having no opinion. Let things be as they are." I once worked with a manager named Karen who struggled with harsh judgment. She would often criticize employees for minor mistakes without taking the time to understand their challenges. One day, she reprimanded a team member for submitting work late, unaware that he had been helping another department meet a crucial deadline. Instead of fostering growth or teamwork, her quick judgment created resentment and tension within the team. Over time, Karen's reputation suffered, and her team became less open to sharing challenges or asking for help. Why does judging others harshly show a narrow perspective? Because it focuses on the momentary snapshot, not the full picture. It reduces people to their mistakes, ignoring their efforts, growth, and circumstances. Harsh critics miss the opportunity to connect, support, and build trust with others. Marcus Aurelius's wisdom, "You always own the option of having no opinion," reminds us that restraint is a strength. Pausing before passing judgment creates space for understanding and empathy, leading to better relationships and deeper wisdom. Here's how to avoid harsh judgment and embrace a more compassionate mindset. Pause and reflect. When you feel the urge to judge, ask yourself, do I know the full story, or am I reacting to a single moment? Focus on growth. Instead of criticizing mistakes, look for opportunities to encourage growth and learning. Ask questions, not assumptions. Approach situations with curiosity. Seek to understand what's happening beneath the surface. Practice self-awareness. Harsh judgment often stems from our own insecurities. Reflect on why you feel the need to judge. Judging others harshly is like pruning a tree without understanding its season. The Stoics remind us that true wisdom comes from patience, understanding, and the humility to see beyond the surface. So, the next time you feel the urge to criticize, ask yourself, am I judging the tree in winter, or am I waiting to see it bloom? Choose to lead with patience, empathy, and a willingness to understand the deeper story. You'll find that this approach not only broadens your perspective, but also strengthens your connections with those around you. If any of the points resonated with you, be sure to comment, "Thank God I learned it," to share your thoughts and let us know how it connected. Number 4, blaming others for their failures. Have you ever seen a sailor blame the wind for not reaching their destination? Instead of adjusting the sails, they point fingers at the weather, ignoring their own role in steering the ship. Blaming others works the same way. It shifts responsibility outward, leaving no room for growth or improvement. Here's the truth. Accountability is the foundation of growth. When you refuse to take responsibility for your actions, you give up your power to change your circumstances. Stoicism teaches us that true wisdom begins with self-reflection. As Marcus Aurelius said, "A man who blames others has not yet begun his journey of wisdom." I remember a co-worker named Sarah who struggled with accountability. Whenever a project didn't go as planned, she was quick to point fingers. The deadline was too tight, or the team didn't give me the support I needed. While there was often some truth to her complaints, she never looked at her own role in the situation. Over time, her colleagues grew frustrated, and Sarah missed out on opportunities for growth because she refused to learn from her mistakes. Why does blaming others hinder growth? Because it creates a barrier to self-awareness. When you avoid accountability, you lose the chance to reflect on your actions, learn from them, and make meaningful changes. Instead of growing stronger, you stay stuck in a cycle of excuses and stagnation. Marcus Aurelius's wisdom: "A man who blames others has not yet begun his journey of wisdom," reminds us that accountability is the first step toward personal growth. Taking responsibility isn't about assigning blame to yourself. It's about owning your role in the outcome and using it to grow. Here's how to stop blaming others and embrace accountability. Reflect on your role. After a setback, ask yourself, what could I have done differently? This shifts the focus from blame to growth. Take ownership. Accept responsibility for your actions, even when it's uncomfortable. Accountability builds trust and credibility. Learn from feedback. Instead of deflecting criticism, use it as an opportunity to improve. Growth comes from listening and adapting. Focus on solutions. Rather than dwelling on the problem, channel your energy into finding ways to improve and move forward. Blaming others is like trying to sail a boat without taking the helm. You'll drift aimlessly, controlled by external forces. The Stoics remind us that we have the power to steer our lives, but only if we take responsibility for our actions. So the next time you feel the urge to point fingers, ask yourself, am I steering the ship, or am I blaming the wind? Choose to take the helm. Embrace responsibility and let accountability guide you toward wisdom, growth, and success. Number 5, they repeat the same mistakes. Have you ever seen someone try to walk up a muddy hill without changing their path, only to slip and fall over and over again? Instead of finding a new way, they keep taking the same steps, expecting a different result. Repeating the same mistakes works the same way. It keeps you stuck, frustrated, and unable to move forward. Here's the truth. Failure isn't the problem. Refusing to learn from it is. Mistakes are opportunities for growth, but only if we take the time to reflect and adapt. Stoicism teaches us that wisdom comes from recognizing patterns, learning from experience, and avoiding the same pitfalls. As Seneca said, the unwise trip over the same stone twice. I remember a coworker named James, who was brilliant but stubborn. He had a habit of overloading himself with work, missing deadlines, and apologizing afterward. Each time, he'd promised to manage his time better, but he never changed his approach. He kept saying yes to every project, overestimating his capacity and falling into the same trap. Eventually, his reputation suffered, not because of his skills, but because of his inability to learn from his mistakes. Why do people repeat the same mistakes? Because they refuse to reflect. They see failure as something to avoid or ignore, rather than as a lesson to embrace. Without self-awareness and a willingness to change, harmful patterns become cycles that are hard to break. Seneca's wisdom, the unwise trip over the same stone twice, reminds us that true wisdom lies in learning and adapting. Mistakes are inevitable, but repeating them is a choice. Here's how to break the cycle and grow from your mistakes. Reflect on failures. After a mistake, ask yourself, what went wrong? What can I do differently next time? Reflection turns failure into a lesson. Embrace feedback. Listen to constructive criticism. Others often see what we miss and can guide us toward better choices. Make small changes. Start with small adjustments to your approach. Even minor shifts can lead to big improvements over time. Commit to growth. Treat every mistake as a stepping stone, not a stumbling block. Growth requires effort, reflection, and action. Repeating the same mistakes is like running on a treadmill. You expend energy, but go nowhere. The Stoics remind us that progress comes from recognizing patterns, making changes, and moving forward with intention. So, the next time you find yourself slipping into a harmful pattern, ask yourself, am I tripping over the same stone, or am I finding a new path? Choose to reflect, adapt, and take purposeful steps forward. You'll find that with each lesson learned, you move closer to wisdom, success, and personal growth. Number 6, engaging in endless arguments. Have you ever watched two people playing tug-of-war with no finish line? They pull and pull, expending all their strength, but neither side moves forward. That's what endless arguments look like, a battle of egos where the goal isn't to learn or grow, but simply to win. The harder you pull, the more tension you create, leaving both sides drained and frustrated. Here's the truth. Arguing for the sake of winning isn't about finding truth. It's about feeding pride. When people focus solely on proving their point, they close themselves off to understanding the other side. Stoicism reminds us that wisdom isn't found in conflict, but in clarity and self-control. As Seneca said, better to remain silent than to argue with ignorance. I remember a conversation with a colleague named Ben. Ben loved debates, but not in the way that fosters understanding. He'd engage in every argument, no matter how trivial, just to prove he was smarter. One day, we found ourselves debating a minor issue about workplace policies. I quickly realized that no matter what I said, Ben wasn't listening. He was just waiting for his turn to speak. The debate dragged on, accomplishing nothing but tension. By the end, I walked away feeling frustrated, realizing I had wasted my time trying to engage with someone more interested in winning than understanding. Why do endless arguments leave us feeling empty? Because they're not built on mutual respect or a desire for truth. Instead, they're driven by ego, turning discussions into battles and leaving no room for growth. The more you argue for the sake of arguing, the further you drift from wisdom and connection. Seneca's advice, "Better to remain silent than to argue with ignorance," reminds us that silence isn't weakness, it's wisdom. Walking away from pointless arguments protects your energy and preserves your peace. Here's how to avoid endless arguments and focus on meaningful communication. Ask yourself, what's my goal? Before engaging, reflect on whether the conversation is about understanding or proving a point. Stay calm and curious. Approach disagreements with curiosity, not defensiveness. This fosters dialogue instead of conflict. Focus on growth, not ego. Remember, it's better to learn and grow than to win an argument that leads nowhere. Engaging in endless arguments is like trying to push a boulder uphill, only for it to roll back down every time. The Stoics teach us that true strength lies not in battling every challenge, but in knowing which battles are worth fighting. So, the next time you're tempted to argue, ask yourself, am I pulling on a rope that's going nowhere, or am I stepping back to find clarity? Choose to let go of pointless debates, focus on understanding, and let wisdom guide your words and actions. If you've made it this far, write in the comments, "Thank God." I'd love to hear your success stories. Please subscribe, turn on notifications, and comment so that YouTube recognizes these videos as helpful to people like you. This motivates us to keep creating content like this in the future. I also recommend checking out the last 2 videos we've suggested. Thank you so much for your time and support. See you on our next adventure.